Hey guys, so since we have done the base stats in a previous video, in this one I want to do randomized stats for our crafted items. And it will probably be a longer video because it's quite complex, but I think I came up with a really good system that you will all enjoy, and it's very easy to customize for your own games later. So, first thing that we need is some kind of array that will hold our stats, so we can pull the random one. But we can't use our stats enumerator because it has crafting level and crafting experience, and we don't want to have those on our items. So instead we're going to create new structure. So go to blueprint, create new structure. This will be random stat pool underscore s. Open it up. And in here what we need to do is change this first variable to stats enumerator, which got our stats. We'll name this random stat. We'll add one more variable. This will be min value, type float, and we'll add one more, which is max value, also type float. And the reason we're adding this is because for each stat we want to have different randomized values. So you don't want to roll, for example, same for health, which will be maximum value will be 30, and you don't want to roll that on a critical hit chance because that would be overpowered. So you want to have custom values for each stat. So save this. The way we're going to use it is in our player, we're going to create a new variable, and this will be random stat pool. We will select the random stat pool struct that we created, and we will make it an array. Compile and save. And now here we can just add stats that we want to have on items. So I'm going to add health. Min value will be 5 and 30. Then I'm going to do mana, also 5 and 30. And I'll do stamina, which just for a change, I'm just going to do 5 and 20. And I don't have many more stats at the moment, much more stats created, but we can create some more later on. For now, it's enough for this video. So we're going to compile and save. And now we need a function that will generate the random stats after we craft the item. But instead of doing it in crafting widget, we're going to create it here. So click on a plus icon, and this one will be add random stats. We will need to set up input of type item info, which will be our item info, so the item that will pass to this function. And we'll also need an output, which is same type, and it will be random stats item. Okay, for now we don't need return node, so you can just alt click and disconnect it, just drag it back somewhere. And now, don't have to do this part, I'm just going to show you. The easiest way to generate stats would be like get this random stat pool, do get a copy, we'll random integer, connect it here, and then integer goes from 0 to max value, and max value will be just length of this. Okay, and this is the easiest way to get it, because if you got 3 items in a random stat pool, it will go 0 from 3, pick one, and then it will output random stat and min and max value, which we could also randomize. But instead we need to do a little bit more, as I said, complex function. So first thing we need to do is break this open, this item info, and we do have some stats on this item that we're passing to this function, so we need to remove them. So drag from stats and do clear, which will remove all the entries from the map array. Also, don't worry about the base stats in this video. We'll only be manipulating the stats. Base stats will stay the same, so just so you don't make a mistake. And after we clear it here, we also need the same type variable like we got the stats. So we will promote it to local variable, and this will be local random stats. Disconnected here, this is just so we can get the same type. You can even remove it. And now we need to check how many stats we actually want to generate on an item. And as I said, it's going to be based on our rarity. So we'll switch on rarity. Here we'll need a variable that will hold these numbers. So we'll create one more local variable. This will be local stat count. So local stat count, this will be integer and it will be single variable. Compile and save. And we're going to set it here, but first you're going to set it on uncommon, because if you remember, we want to generate 1 stat on uncommon, 2 on rare, 3 on epic, and 4 on legendary, and common will now only have the base stats, okay? Which I think is really good system, but obviously you can change it as you want. You can generate as many stats you want, but I'm going to generate just 1, 2, 3, and 4. On common, what we can do then is just return node, so we don't run this function for nothing, and we'll pass this item info that we just inputted in the function to output. But instead of just dragging it across, we'll get item info and connect it directly here. Okay, so we'll return the same one, and for the rest we will copy this 3 more times. Yep. Move this up, and then I'm going to change it for 0, 1, 2, and 3. And I know I said we need to generate 1 stat, but the reason for those numbers is we're going to do for loop, not for each loop, but for loop, which let us select the first index and last index. But even with this stat being 0, which we need to plug in here in the last index, it will always run once, because it will run the first time, so 0 to 0, then for this one it will go 0 and then 1, so twice. This one will be 3 times and 4 times, so it will generate correct amount of stats. Okay, and now the stats that we need to add to our local random stats, we will do add this one, the map array, connected here, and now we need to get that random stat. Oh, don't forget to connect all of this. And I showed you already, so we're going to get it in a similar way. We're going to get this local random stat pool. Actually, we can't get this one because we'll also need to remove the stats that we are using, so we don't generate 2 of the same stats on the item, because first of all it wouldn't work, it wouldn't let us add it to the map array because it can have only one of the same keys. So the way we need to remove it is, first we need to promote this to a local variable in the beginning, and this will be local random stat pool, connected here. And then we'll just be manipulating this local variable instead of the global one, because if you remove something from global one, we wouldn't have that stats here anymore. So the next item wouldn't have any stats basically. So we get this local random stat pool, we get a copy. Oh, let's do first random integer. So random integer max will be length of this, and connect it here. Drag this back. Then we need to promote this to a variable, local variable, called local stat index. And the reason we're promoting this to a variable is because we need to remember it in each loop. We need to remember this variable, this random one, because we need to remove that stat with the index. So here what we're going to do after we add the stat, so we still haven't added it, but here, so after this, let's get this stat pool again so it's a little bit cleaner. We will get a copy on this index. We can connect it now here, and we will break this open. And here we now have a stat that we can connect. And from this we will make stat type, and here we got the current stat value and max stat value. Our items that our stats that we will generate through this function will always be max stats, because even if you have the single variables like armor or damage, it's always a max stat, and if you have any others, it's not like a potion that you're healing yourself, you're adding to the max, so you're always adding max health, max stamina, so it will always be max stat, and we can just connect it directly here. But what this does is gives us this max value that we set here, so it's not randomized. So we also need to randomize this value. We're going to drag from here to random float in range. And the min value will now be this one, and max value will be here. And it will generate as random stat between those values. There we go. And then we need to remove that stat that we just added, so it's not there again in the pool. So we'll get this random stat pool, get the copy on this local stat index that we saved. So this is why we saved it now, so we can get a copy, and we will remove item. Okay, so this will remove this, the whole stat that we'll find basically from this local random stat pool. Don't forget to connect this one as well here. All right, compile and save. And now we generated all the stats. So what we need to do is on completed, we'll connect the return node. Move this down. And then we drag from this item, make item info, which will let us edit every single value. And we'll just get our item info that we passed to this function, copy it, paste it here, break it open. And now we connect every single variable here apart from stats. And stats will be the local random stats. And this will return randomized item. If you remember, we removed the stats from in the beginning, so it doesn't have any, and we'll just add the random stats to it. Okay, so this should already work. One thing I want to show you now before our functions get too complicated and we're a bit lost in it. This one won't connect itself when we add new variable to our item info s. So we need to be updating it manually. So what we can do now is select these nodes, press C on the keyboard for comment, and let's write to update underscore item info. And if you compile and save it, what this does is that if you're in different blueprints, or let's say we have this somewhere else, not in play blueprint, so I'm going to open this component, and then here we got the find results. If you don't have it here, you can just Control and F on the keyboard, and then we can just search to update. And if we search for it, it will give us this comment, and you can see on the side we got to update item info. So if we upgrade item info, we can just search for this, and we can just click on a comment, and it will put us wherever we need to update it. Okay, and this is really good thing to do for all of the function that requires this. So we do have this in the pickup function, pickup item, which, look, I haven't even updated it here after we changed the base stats, so I'll connect the base stats, connect the crafting. It only happens if we're stacking items, but we're not really stacking the weapons or anything, but you know, we always should have this connected just in case. So we will also select this, comment, and I'll do the same thing to update item info. And go to remove function, remove item, same thing, connect it here, comment, and to update item info. compile and save. And now let's test out the random function. Let's go to our crafting widget. In here we can go to graph, go to craft item, and here before we pick up item, we're going to get the player reference again. Add random stats function. And then this one is a crafting only, it's not the item info, so we can just get this active item info. You can control an X, we don't need it there, we'll paste it here. And we can connect this one with randomized items to item info here in the pickup, so it'll pick up our item with randomized stats already. Okay, compile and save. And just so we know, I updated my items data table as I said I would in the previous video. I didn't want to do it on the video because it takes really long time. Just so I have a base stats and a stats. So do it yourself if you haven't yet. And in iron sword I created just one material, so it would require one iron bar to craft, so we can test it out. So pick this up, go to iron sword, craft, 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 and craft. And now in here you can see we got max stamina, max health, max stamina and max mana, max health, max stamina, max health, mana, and it's all random values. The problem is that you can see that we got decimal points on it, so that's an easy thing to get rid of. And what I also want to do is just base it on crafting, so our crafting level. We don't want to we don't want to always have a chance to roll the max stat. We want to base it on a stat value, so on the crafting stat. So first thing that we need to do is go to back to the function. We got way too many open, so right click on event graph maybe and close all the tabs. Let's reopen it again. And to remove the decimal point, we're going to drag from this return value, disconnect this, and we're going to multiply this first by 10. Then we will round this value. I'll explain it in a second why that works. And then we're going to multiply again to float single precision by 0.1. And this will output value with 1 decimal point. So if you had, let's say we roll, I'm going to add comment here so you can see it. So this is the value that we just randomized. In here we'll multiply it by 10, so it will become, can I copy comment? So this one will become 55 now. We'll 55.555. We'll round it here, it will become 55. And then we'll multiply it by 1.1, which will become 5.5. So from this, we rounded it to 5.5, and it works with all the numbers basically to get you 1 decimal point, okay? And then we connect it back to max stat. But now let's just quickly see if that works. Maybe my math is wrong. There we go. So now we got 4.2 and 9.6, which is actually what we want. Eventually maybe we can remove the point value, but if you're going to do something low, like, you know, we got attack speed, and it's very important to see if it's 1.1 or 1.2, because it can make a lot of difference later on. And same with the critical chance, you know, there's difference between 1.5 and 2. So what we're going to do is now base our random stats on the crafting level. So first we can get our stats component. We can get current stat and get max stat. And we need to get the percentage of where we are currently with our crafting level. So get crafting level in both. We'll divide it. So divide the first value by the second value. So if our crafting level is 10 and our max is 300, it will give us, I don't know what's the percentage is, 0 point something. So that's basically a percentage. And then we need to, this is going to be long. Then based on that percentage, we need to multiply this by multiply this value that we return, max value, no, just the max value. We'll multiply by the percentage. So if we rolled full 40 or 30, whatever we have on the max stat, and we multiply it by percentage that we currently have in a level, so we got 50% of crafting level at 150, it will only give us half of this max value. Okay, but then one problem is it can also roll less than the minimum value, because on the crafting 1 we'll basically have we'll have 0% here, so it will give us minimum value all the time. So what we can do is clamp this, clamp float between minimum value and not percentage, and then not the max value. Actually, yeah, we can clamp it between max value, because this is going to be the ceiling anyway. So between min value and max value, we'll clamp it here. And I know it's a little bit difficult. I mean, it took me a while to come up with this. So silly math, but it should work quite well. And now return value will go to no, because we don't randomize it. Return value will go after we random float in range. Okay, so here we had to connect not this one but this one that we, oh no, max value needs to be here, and then random float in range. We'll do between min and max value will be, okay, so this one from the clamp we connect this to the random value. Okay, so we can only do the maximum, that is the percentage of the crafting level. Now compile and save. And since our crafting level is 1 only at the moment, we can only get the minimum value on the crafting. So you need to level up your crafting. So let's see. And now we can see we're getting max health only 5 and max stamina 5. And if we in a player, if we change the stats, where are stats component, and change the crafting level to 300 current stat, it should be able to generate it between 5 and 30. So you can see 16 point, 14 point, 15, 16, 18. So it should work fine. I'll test it one more time just in case there is no high values or anything. 11, 17, 17 and 19. Yeah, it looks that is working fine. And now basically every time you level up crafting, you can have high values and stuff, and I think this is a really good system. Obviously this part is a little bit messy here, so I don't know what we can do to make it less messy. Connected here, and this. And this value we can maybe promote to local max stat. Actually, no, just leave it. Just leave it connected like this. Maybe I'll drag this down, double click. Yeah, okay. So that works. I'll give you one more look at this function because I know it's a little bit complex. So which values you got connected where. And there is also one more thing that we can do. So for certain items, you don't want to have some stats. So for example, on the boots, you would maybe want carry capacity, but you don't want to have it on any other ones. So we can also create stats for the selected items. So what we can do is on the random stat pool, we can also create a new one. So we can just duplicate this one. So duplicate, and this will be weapon stat weapon. Let's call it random. So it starts with random weapon stat pool, and this one will rename to random armor stat pool. So it will have two separate ones. We don't have any different stats, but we can create actually some now. We can go to stats enumerator. Let's create a couple more, and it will be critical hit chance. And this will be critical hit damage. We'll save it. We need to also set it up in the player so it doesn't give us error when we're equipping items. So go to stats component, in here create, let's change my crafting back to 1. Let's create 2 more. So first one will be critical hit chance. Base value we can just, this will only be the max stat value because it's only 1. So we'll do 2 as a base, so we do have some critical chance. And we'll do critical hit damage. And that one will be, maybe let's do 50, because if you put 0 in here, then if you score a critical hit chance later on, it would calculate as a normal hit because it wouldn't give it any multiplier, so it needs to be 50 at least as a base. Compile and save. And now we can add it to this random weapon stat pool. Let's just remove, we can leave stamina for example, and we will remove health, and we will remove mana, and we can roll stamina, and then we can roll critical hit chance, which will be 2 and 10, and critical hit damage, which will be maybe 10 and 50. Critical hit damage. Alright, compile and save. And now we could just switch on item type before this. So switch on item type. And let's maybe drag the whole thing back. And what we can do here is we do have this local random stat pool, so connect it here. Connect the offhand, so everything that goes into weapon will go here. Shield, I think, as well. Legs, chest, and then do this one for chest, hands, legs, feet, materials and gold, that's fine. And then we'll just connect it here. And for this one, we'll connect the random weapon stats pool. And another one, we will have a random armor stat pool, and we can remove it from here. Okay, and this way you can create random stat pool that you want for each selected item. So you can have 10 different ones. If you want gloves to have different ones, if you want shield to have different ones and stuff, so you can just keep creating these random ones and then connecting it here. So this is why I say it's quite modular in a way that you can customize it as you want. You can add as many stats as you want to it and stuff, and it will all randomize it, okay, for you. So compile and save. And now we can also test it out, but I think in our stats we need to connect one more thing in our widgets and stats. Yeah, so we do have this switch on the stats, so we need to connect the critical hit chance to this one. And critical hit damage as well. And this is another thing that we can just comment, and it will be to update underscore stats. Okay, so when we update stats enumerator, we need to update this. This is another case of that. Compile and save. And now let's see, actually in our weapons. So 1 and 2. So max stamina 5, critical hit damage 10, critical hit damage and max stamina. Okay, so it randomized stats. I haven't seen critical hit chance, but that's just, it's a chance, isn't it? So it seems to be working completely fine. Critical hit chance, there we go. And I think it's a really good system. So it's based on crafting, as I said. So higher you go, the higher percentage you got to roll higher stats. I just noticed that our crafting level doesn't update when you got the full experience, so I think I need to change that as well. But I will save that for another video because this one is really long. So I hope you enjoyed the random stats, and I'll see you in the next one. And just a quick thing I forgot to mention actually is just make sure you got at least 4 stats in each random stat pool, because for our legendary we need to generate 4 stats, and if you remove the first 3, then the 4th one will throw you an error. Okay, so make sure you at least got 4 all the time. So create some more stats maybe. Alright, bye.